Welcome to Community Crypto on CoinDesk TV. I'm your host, Isaiah Jackson, and this week we are exploring the recent boom of the crypto and blockchain job market. I'm joined now by Sandra Ro, CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council, and Colton Sakamoto, co-founder of Crypto Jobs. Welcome to the show, guys.
Great, thanks for having us.
Glad to have you both here and excited to discuss the crypto and blockchain job market, which has seen a big boom recently. This past week, LinkedIn actually released a report that said that job postings had grown 395% last year. So first, I want to start with you, Colton. What do you think has driven this explosion of available jobs?
Yeah, I think it starts at the retail level, obviously, with the Bitcoin halving happening in 2021. We saw this massive increase in retail demand. And I think adoption really happens in cohorts. So with Bitcoin and crypto, it starts at the retail level, goes up to the institution level, and then goes up to the nation state level. And we saw all three of those occur in 2021. And then with that, we saw a massive hiring spree as well.
Right. And Sandra, same thing. How do you explain this explosion of jobs, especially at a time where you see a lot of people who are hiring at this point? Where did this explosion of jobs come from?
Yeah, I think there's definitely correlations to obviously the crypto markets booming last year, but we've been watching a trend of every year, trend line going up. And we're seeing that across different industries. But just to give you an example of financial services, you're seeing a one-way direction, especially some really senior people leaving financial services to now go work at crypto and blockchain companies. And that brain trust and talent is a very interesting trend. We have a report coming out, actually, we did with an executive recruitment firm, Heidrick and Struggles, on Thursday, that's going to actually highlight that one-way trend we're seeing.
Right. And that sort of, pulls up another question is, in Wall Street and Silicon Valley, we're seeing sort of a brain drain of talent coming to the blockchain industry. Are you seeing the same thing, Sandra? Is that what you're referring to as far as a lot of the talent coming over to this industry?
Exactly. It's going from all of those old school, locations and places and industries and heading towards blockchain and crypto. One, it's the excitement of a growing industry. Number two, it is the additional opportunity set and, let's face it, challenges of being in an industry where every day you're problem solving and there's something new going on. Sometimes a little bit overwhelming, but it's exciting. And I think people are looking for that. Excitement meets making money.
Right, absolutely. And I think one good example of that, when I first really noticed the brain drain starting, was Brian Brooks. He was the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, and then he moved over to Binance. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, we must really start to be attracting some good talent based on the job. So you're right. We're seeing a lot of people start to get into that. And for you, Colton, I wanted to ask, do you think people understand that you don't have to be a developer to work in this industry? I think that kind of gets misconstrued. And I think your job list proves you don't have to be a developer to work in the blockchain industry. What do you think, Colton?
Yeah, I think it's a common misconception that you need to be a shadowy supercoder in order to work in the industry. And actually, the data over the past year reflects that there's been a greater increase in more support type roles. So I think at like the early seed stage, Series A level, companies are looking for that dev talent in order to bring their products to the market. But as these companies continue to scale up, Coinbase going public, you're seeing them hire with titles for anything that you would see in legacy finance, legacy tech. You're seeing marketing, you're seeing HR, sales, customer service, etc. So all skill sets are needed in this revolution.
Absolutely. And I think more people should recognize that, these are very tech-centric projects, but you do have to have the business side. Like you said, HR, sales, all of that is important. And the Global Blockchain Business Council, you have a job board available for users. What jobs are you seeing that are most posted, maybe as developers, but what's the jobs you're starting to see that are growing as far as applicants?
Absolutely. I completely agree with both of you that the job needs are across the board, whether you're a lawyer or an accountant or an executive assistant. We need all kinds of skill sets. This is a growing industry. And, whether it's developers that we need, which we're always needing, but we're also seeing on our job board, we have 26,000 jobs. By the way, That's only 29 companies we started with. We're going to add another 100. I can't even imagine how many we're going to have, how many jobs we're going to have once we're posted all of those. But it cuts across innovation, technology. We need strategists. We need people who are going to think about things long term. We need people who are going to do things tactically in the short term. So we need all skill sets.
Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right with that. And with those skill sets, one of the things I wanted to ask is that, do you think that some of the people who are getting the jobs now, do you think that they can make more money in the blockchain industry doing the same type of work because of the scarcity?
I think it depends. So I know that there are like senior level folks who are taking maybe a pay cut in the short term for the upside. They're either getting tokens or a package of tokens and quote unquote fiat currency or shares or equity in a company. It depends on obviously how senior you are and where you are in your stage of career, but as you're transitioning into blockchain or crypto. But I think people are looking at this more than just monetary gain or token upside gain. They're looking at this as I'm going to retool and adjust my career for an industry that is the next decade, 2 decades, whatever have you, of growth. And this is just not a short-term play here.
Oh, yeah. Thinking long term, a lot of employees that are starting to move over to that industry, they understand where we're going. So it seems as though these jobs are starting to become more enticing. And Colton, in the LinkedIn report I described earlier, the exchanges seem to be hiring the most people. Could you speak to that? Why exchanges are listing most of the jobs?
Yeah, so I think it starts with Coinbase going public. And when you go public, it's an all hands on deck phenomena, right? You need to bring on as much people to support all the demand. You're seeing, people pour in at all different kinds of levels because it is public, because it's easily recognized, and because institutions like SpaceX, Tesla, MicroStrategy are using some of these exchanges. They need to scale in accordance with the demand. And exchanges are the most they need institutional sales. So I think exchanges are the biggest reflection of hiring in crypto.
Oh, yes. And from personal experience, a lot of these exchanges definitely need some customer support. I will say that. So if you're looking for a customer support position, exchanges may be a great place to look. Because again, the tech is great, but the human aspect of it, I think, sort of gets lost when you discuss some of these projects. Whether decentralized or centralized, you still have to have that human connection somewhere. So absolutely there. And, one of the things I've noticed is a lot of jobs are becoming open. We're seeing after the pandemic, a lot of workers at brick and mortar places are not working. Does blockchain have an advantage, Sandra, because most of the work is remote and it is more tech focused?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, look, COVID was horrendous for everyone, but for our industry, we were already distributed and we already had mechanisms in place to be able to have virtual teams. It was a much smaller step to adapting to a COVID world. And I think we've only leaned into that as an industry, and it's the norm. So what blockchain and crypto groups were already doing, that's becoming mainstream in terms of virtual and organizing virtually.
Interesting. So Sandra, you're saying that we were already a step ahead as far as jobs go in the blockchain industry, and everybody else had to catch up.
It worked to our advantage. There were lots of awful things that have happened, but for the industry itself, this whole period of time has helped us to lean into our advantages and frankly grow faster than we would have otherwise. Everything is digitized faster.
Absolutely. Yes. And we're seeing that at a fast rate. If you kind of quote Moore's law, every 2 years, technology doubles. I think in the blockchain industry, that might be every 2 months because we're starting to see these changes very, very fast. And Colton, I wanted to ask you, as far as the industry for kids who may be in high school or maybe in college looking towards this industry, do you think this is the preferred industry for kids who are younger than maybe 22? Or do you think this is sort of a fad that may go away? What do you think as far as long term?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are definitely interested, especially at the retail level. Kids are investing earlier. A lot of my friends were pretty early into Doge and things like that. So I think there is this certain level of interest. And when you're passionate about something, you want to work in that industry. So I think you're seeing a lot of people who, came in, maybe for the money and for the quick gains and for Dogecoin. and they're now looking to pivot and how can I actually, start a career around this.
Oh, yes. And, with that statement, one of the things I've always said is that nothing makes a good crypto cheerleader or crypto employee than a bear market, because a lot of times once you get stuck into it and the price starts going down, you figure out how to work in the market. Do you think these job postings and a lot of the applicants that were entering the market, Colton, do you think they will stick around during a bear market? Will they still have the same interest?
I think so. I think it's hard to classify what we're in right now as a bear market. I think if you were to tell Bitcoiners that 40K would be considered a bear market, I think that'd be a pleasant surprise for a lot of people. I think what we're seeing right now is we're at this inflection point where mass adoption is starting to occur. Just yesterday we saw KPMG come out and put Bitcoin and Ethereum on their balance sheet, and I think with that comes more opportunities, and everyone needs a Bitcoin and crypto strategy. So what we're seeing is not only crypto companies scale up their hiring, but we're seeing sort of these like crypto adjacent companies or fintech companies adjusting their strategies in order to accommodate this new phenomena. So I think during this quote unquote bear market, I think we're going to continue to see a lot more people pour into the job market.
And let me just be clear, I don't think we're in a bear market right now. The future bear market, the one where we drop all the way to 100,000.
Totally, exactly.
So, and Sandra, what do you say about that as far as people sticking around and sort of the mainstream adoption? Do you think we'll still see this amount of job postings even in a bear market?
Yeah, it's like I said before, it's the long game. More and more people are going to move towards this industry, and whether it's pure crypto or blockchain and adjacent technologies, we're just going to see this grow. There's how fast will we grow? I think that's a question mark year to year, but we're growing. There's no doubt about that.
Well, 300% in 1 year is pretty good growth. That's definitely a bull market for job growth. Not bad at all. And we talk about blockchain companies and crypto companies, but what are some of the larger institutional companies that are hiring specifically for blockchain projects, but are not necessarily a blockchain company? What are some of the big companies you're seeing, Colton?
Yeah, so I think on our hiring platform specifically, we saw some really interesting companies. Time was looking for a CFO that was proficient in Bitcoin and crypto. Amazon posted a role with us. So I think you're just seeing the shift of like companies reevaluating their strategy and trying to enter the market. Another good example is Facebook rebranding as Meta in order to capture some of this Web3 hype and kind of skate where the puck is going. So I think we're just going to continue to see a lot of these legacy finance, legacy tech companies pivot in some capacity to accommodate this new revolution.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that as far as Facebook changing to Meta. I tell people all the time, a metaverse developer was not really a job posting before. I mean, they existed, but it wasn't huge. Now there's metaverse development schools popping up, and there are people trying to develop. So with new tech comes a whole new job sector. So I'm glad you stated that with that change. And Sandra, to you, I would ask, do you think that the new tech that is creating new jobs, do you think it's moving a bit too fast, or do you think it's just right as far as how we're progressing? Because some people may say, hey, I want to get into this market, but as soon as I learn one thing, something else comes up. Do you think that's a positive or a negative for this job market?
Yeah, I mean, look, I believe in free markets and allowing markets to evolve and technologies likewise to evolve. What I think is consistent and through is if you are trading markets don't trade that differently. They are trading. There's certain skill sets you need, and whether the asset class is different or not, it's not the point. It's if you learn basic skills to either sell or trade or price things, those are fundamental skills that will carry you throughout anyone's career.
Yes, and are there any new types of technology you're seeing on your job boards that are starting to get listed? I know NFTs had a huge boom, and people are becoming NFT developers or starting startups. What type of new tech developments are you seeing, Sandra, that may introduce a totally new job sector?
I think right now it's TBD. There's a lot going on around Web3 and Metaverse. And frankly, I think we're going to see job titles that didn't exist even last year. But I
Right.
think the key point is to stay open-minded. The markets will go where the markets go, and frankly, people will innovate where there are cool things to innovate. And I think this gaming meets NFTs and Meta is going to be a very hot space this year. How far it goes, we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm glad you said that about the jobs that are posted today literally didn't exist last year. And that is amazing to see. And Web 3.0 developers and Web 3.0 companies, that is a new buzzword that is introducing a whole new sector. So glad you definitely mentioned that. So to you, I wanted to ask Colton, do you think workers will continue to work in this industry and not get paid in crypto, or will they start to shift towards, hey, I'm working for a crypto company, I want to get paid in crypto? Do you think that change will occur at some point?
Yeah, I think more so the latter. I think Strike is doing a really good job of allowing people to get paid in Bitcoin, even for workers that aren't working in Bitcoin and crypto. Russell Okung is a great example of taking half of his salary in Bitcoin, and Odo Beckham and a lot of these guys. So I think what you're going to continue to see is, yes, people in the industry continuing to get paid in crypto, but I think you're also going to see just the average person continue to get paid in Bitcoin and crypto.
Mm-hmm. And big shout out to Russell, a good friend of mine, accepted Bitcoin as payment. And you're right. I think it's becoming easier and easier to accept it as payment and then to then use it from that point. What do you think, Sandra? Do you think more people will get paid in crypto?
Yeah, I think the industry just needs to find ways to make it easier. And then the whole, accounting, tax part, like removing all those frictions will just make it easier for people to have options and let people choose how they want to get paid.
Yes, and I'm with you there, but I do want to say the R word, regulations. Do you think regulations will keep back a lot of companies from achieving that goal of being both a crypto company and paying directly in crypto? Do you think that they're sort of in the way of innovation, Sandra?
I would actually argue instead of it's necessarily regulation that's keeping people from accepting crypto payments, I actually think it's the frictions, meaning I don't want to deal with the IRS filing reporting requirements, and I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm not going to bother with it as the average person or a salary person. If we made it super easy and you don't even need to think about it and it happens and you can be compliant, then I think it would actually get more people on board from a mainstream perspective.
All right. Thank you both for coming on. We're going to get into our last question here. And I'll start with you, Sandra. What does an ideal entry-level non-developer job look like for the everyday person? What skills would they need to get into this job market?
So we have this conversation a lot with university grads and actually juniors and seniors who are about to go into the job market. I will say this. It is the go-getter, absorbs information like a sponge, and especially in a startup environment, willing to basically do everything and anything that needs to be done that day. And that is ultimately, if I were coming in, just hustle and learn and take in everything as much as you can and just be helpful. Because right now organizations are growing like crazy. It's organized chaos. But it's great. And it's a great way to get in on the ground floor of any blockchain or crypto group right now.
Great metrics to go by. So if you are looking to get into the industry, think about those types of things. And for you, Colton, what would you say are some of the skills needed for someone to get into the crypto industry in a non-developer role?
Yeah, I think first of all, you have to be passionate. With what we're seeing with our training program that we run, it's first important to have a baseline level of understanding and, just be passionate about the industry, be able to speak the language. We've seen people with all different backgrounds. We saw a kid who actually dropped out of college and was able to land a job at Bitcoin Inc. So I think passion, persistence, and effort goes a long way in the industry. And I think, like Sandra said, being able to wear a bunch of different hats and do whatever is needed is important.
Absolutely. And make sure you take those things to heart. If you are watching out there, a lot of jobs available for you. I want to thank you both for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Thank you both. And with that, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we'll be speaking with Cleve Mesidor about diversity in the job market. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Community Crypto on CoinDesk TV. I'm joined now by Cleve Mesidor, the Public Policy Advisor for the Blockchain Association. How you doing today, Cleve?
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Always. Yes, you're always invited. And I'm glad to have you on because we're discussing the crypto and blockchain job market. And one of the key things about this market is that it's so new, there's so many new jobs, but we want to make sure that it is inclusive and that diversity is shown early on. We don't want to have to work our way towards diversity like in the traditional market. We want to start there, right? So for you, Cleve, I want to ask, what are some of the advantages that people who may not be able to get into the traditional markets, what's some of the advantages of working in the blockchain industry?
Yeah, obviously you and I both love crypto, so tons of advantages. I'm an advisor to the Blockchain Association. We actually have a jobs hub for member companies. The Blockchain Association represents almost 80 companies now. I think we're like 75. And if people go to careersinblockchain.us, I believe we have about 3,500 plus jobs there. And it's a compilation of all member companies house their jobs there. And so the beauty of the jobs in the space, especially the ones we have at the Blockchain Association, there are non-technical and technical jobs, developer jobs, entry-level jobs, mid-level career jobs. So I think, there's so many benefits to being in a new space to actually have a lot of autonomy and ownership. But our challenge is getting the word out, right? We're talking about diversity. And so if we're not intentional about, casting a wide net in terms of sharing these resources, we're not going to get the results. And at the Blockchain Association, I work with them to make sure we're sharing this resource to HBCUs and to diverse communities.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that as far as casting a wide net, because one thing you don't see in the traditional markets is a wide net. They usually go directly to certain schools, directly to certain types of programs. And with the blockchain industry being for everybody, we definitely have to cast that wide net. And one way you're doing that is with the job board and, of course, having conversations like this. But what are some of the fears you're hearing from people who are maybe marginalized or don't get as much of a look in the industry? What are some of the fears you're hearing about blockchain?
Yeah, I think our biggest challenge in this industry to attracting, diverse talent is, the reputation of crypto. There are lots of professionals out there who are looking for new options. We've heard about the Great Resignation, and let's face it, professional women of color were the greatest casualties of COVID. And they're looking to opportunities that are virtual, that are more creative, where they can bring their body of work. But, if everything we hear about crypto in the news is that, oh my God, is it a scam? It's volatile. So we have to have a different conversation. I know the last segment you asked Sandra and the other guests about what does it like to work in crypto. We have to demystify that, right? We have to let people know that it's just like working anywhere else, right? You have you have coworkers, you have projects due, and so. But I think there is this spookiness of what kind of jobs are there, and is it for me?
Mm-hmm. And you're right, the spookiness, like Colton was saying, the shadowy coders that are sitting away is sort of the stereotype of everybody that works in this industry. When in reality, about 30% of it is development. The other 70% is far and away as far as development, because you need business people, HR, sales, project managers, accountants, lawyers. All of these things can be a part of the industry, and they're all available. So I would ask you, what are some of the jobs or companies, I should say, that are looking to hire more diverse people in the blockchain industry?
Yeah. So again, I think all of our member companies, I work with the Blockchain Association member companies on diversity and inclusion. They're all committed to getting new talent. I work with them in terms of getting, jobs in front of diverse communities. One of the things that we created for the Blockchain Association for member companies is a diversity, equity, inclusion internship program. We underestimate how important entry-level jobs are in those internships. So this is our inaugural cohort, and we've placed four interns from majority Latinx and as well as HBCUs in blockchain companies. And we realize that these universities don't necessarily get these options this early on. But what I would tell people is, there has to be intentional, right? I remember companies wanted to do this, right? I went and worked with these universities to make sure they were comfortable, to make sure we had the university buy-in. And one thing I will say, even for internships, the game has changed where people expect interns to be qualified and have all this experience. And I think that's how we actually keep people out. Internships are mutually exclusive, right? They bring skills and the company has to bring skills. So I think people have to be open that not everyone's going to come from Harvard and MIT, but they're going to come to the table with important skills.
And I think it's important to remember that because one thing a CEO told me, billion-dollar industry, he actually explained to me, he said, the only thing that I see in employees that separates them from others is perseverance. It's not what degree you got. It's not where you come from. It's not even how much you know. It's about perseverance. So if you have somebody who is willing to do the dirty work as an intern, I believe that is a great employee that you'll have later. So I'm glad you definitely discussed that. And I wanted to ask, do you think the diversity problem in the blockchain industry could be solved very quickly versus traditional markets? Because looking around, I think this is the most diverse industry in the world, simply because it's a global technology. Do you think we could sort of get the diversity going early in the blockchain industry so it's not an issue later?
Yeah, we have a challenge. Do we want to repeat the missteps of traditional tech, big tech? I will tell you right now, right, Black and Latinx communities lead national adoption by double digits, but it's not reflected in the space, and we have to go further, right? So that means that Black and Latinx in marketplace is driving this space. And so this industry, if it wants to be viable, it needs to be diverse. It's no longer a moral imperative, it's a business imperative. So I spend a lot of time talking about the future of work and how to integrate skills training, financial literacy, even the notion of access to capital. Because Black and Latinx innovators, entrepreneurs, small businesses, professionals, we are no longer interested in being consumers. We want to be producers. But what's unique about Black and Latinx innovators in crypto is we come to the table with networks, with the communities that are the majority in the marketplace. So, large companies in this space, they need to connect with us, right? Because I can tell you, I know they don't have the networks, and we come to the table with them. So the growth of diverse communities and interests there is going to continue to grow. The industry needs to follow suit, and if it doesn't, it's at its own peril.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and I think you're right. That has to happen, or we'll repeat what happened before, and we don't want that. Absolutely. And as far as
no, the industry, if it repeats what it did before, it won't survive. The difference between then and now is the marketplace is younger and browner, and there is not an option, right? So if the industry wants to grow build in the same way, who is it building for? So there's a difference this time around.
Yes. Oh yeah, you can definitely see that. And because the barrier of entry is a lot lower, you have a lot more founders, you have a lot more people that can enter in. And moving past the entry level, do you think we can see more diversity at the C-suite level? Because I know in the tech world, coming from the tech world, a lot of times, a lot of people in my community, they would get tech jobs, but it was always entry level or it was always junior level. Do you see a lot more diversity at the C-suite level at these blockchain companies?
We definitely need to do more. There was just a congressional hearing with CEOs, and there was just one female CEO. So we need more diversity in the C-suite. The good thing is the space is in its infancy. There's a lot of work to be done. I'm an advisor to the Blockchain Association that's led by a woman. Sandra Ro has her organization. So we have to do more in terms of gender diversity and equity. But I'll tell you, I actually don't think, I don't focus on the C-suite. I think we build this industry by making sure that entry-level positions and internships are going to communities of color. That is how we focus on the future of work and build a different workforce. Right? It's easy to say, oh, we're going to make that CEO, this person a CEO, or add a few executives here. But when we create a pipeline, when we actually plant seeds, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that's when I'll know that the C-suite will be diverse.
Yes. And speaking of that pipeline, Cleve, I got to invite you down to Florida to get to some of these HBCUs you mentioned, so we can keep that pipeline going into these jobs. So I appreciate you, Cleve, for coming on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of Community Crypto. I'm your host, Isaiah Jackson, and every week we are building a global community with local crypto groups. So be sure to tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern